Welcome to the Roller Coaster Live. I'm your host, Lucy Q, and joining me is Holly Boxenhorn. And we are going to continue our conversation from last week, where we were talking about basically how motivation doesn't really work. And we also gave you some ideas of what you can do instead. Today, we're continuing with Holly sharing her 5 questions that we should be asking ourselves in midlife. And we're also going to be diving in deeper with the wheel of life. It was something that we touched on last week, but we really wanted to put a bit more light on it for, just how to use it and how you can use it to identify the gaps in your life and the areas that you do want to focus on. But first, I'd like to ask you a little favor. Could you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? And while you're at it, give us a thumbs up, because this will let YouTube know that this is a channel worth sharing, because our greatest strength is in our community. Holly, how are you this week?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I really enjoyed where we started last week, and I'm looking at diving into it further, because I think this time of year is the best time of year to be looking at this. Most of the time, we're putting this off until January, where, we're coming down from the, all the busyness and the stress and what have you of the holidays. And we get to January and we've got that, I don't know, I think there's a natural feeling that we get about a fresh start.
Agreed. For me, September is like a fresh start. I'm still like on the school calendar.
Back to school,
love the brand new crayons and all the cool notebooks and stuff like that. But January obviously is another great starting place, especially after the holidays. And, everyone's kind of ready to start a clean slate with a more normal schedule. But the truth is that, goal setting in any time of the year, it's really important to understand how to build in success, whether, so you can go the distance and then sustain it. A lot of the times we just, now don't we just aimlessly kind of just say, I want to do this, I want to try that, I want to do this, but there's no thought behind what is the real purpose of me even doing that, what might stand in the way of me even creating that stuff, how can I start, creating a small action plan step by step, building into it, because overwhelm is not great either. Any habits that are going to be built are built in small little doses. So I think we'll dive into all of that, but I think breaking it all apart over the next couple of weeks could be really helpful. And I think it is a crucial time. Like, now is the time to set yourself up for success by giving the thoughts to this stuff now, so that you can hit the ground running in January.
Also, I think there's a certain element of, once we start getting into January and February, anyone, in the northern hemisphere, it can get into sort of a really blah feeling.
Old drums of the winter.
Oh, I mean,
how gray it is.
January and February can get really tough depending where you are in North America.
Yep.
And it's easy to fall into a bit of a winter depression.
Easy, yes.
And I think that's why, if you set yourself up with something exciting and to look forward to, something new, something different, that maybe you can mitigate some of those winter blues.
Yes, that's definitely, to get excited about it, but it's also considering, like, that's also part of the equation, is that people don't really think about what might get in the way of allowing these aspirations to come to fruition. Like, the winter could very well be a barrier for some people. Maybe the weather conditions just in itself, snow might, make it an obstacle to get to any social event.
Don't say the S word.
Or get to the gym, or, any of that, or keep us isolated. Like, what is it about me and my current circumstances? And that varies for everyone depending on what's going on in their life, that might prevent their aspirations from coming to fruition. And again, we'll do a deep dive into that later on. But first, it's really like, I think it's really, there's a art to setting goals. You want powerful goals. And we were talking about that a lot last week with establishing our why. understanding that motivation doesn't just appear out of thin air. It's something we have to stoke. It's something we have to cultivate. And having a why is a large part of that motivation. That's a piece of stoking that's required. But then there are those people who are like, well, that's great, Holly. That's great, Lucy. But what if I don't even know what my why is? What if I don't even know where my best efforts will be served? So much is changing up in midlife. I'm not even sure what my why is or what my bigger purpose is. And so I think we need to, dial it back a little bit to help people, gain some clarity on establishing those insights so that they can then come up with their why, and understand where their best efforts will be served.
And that's why when I went through, call it what I call my midlife meltdown, one of the first things that I did was I really tried to establish what I didn't want in my life anymore.
Yeah.
What wasn't, and that takes looking at what's not working. Yeah, you look at what's working, but what's not working, that's going to give you some sort of indication of the areas of your life that you need to give it more focus to. And that's where the wheel of life comes in. Now, I am going to try my best to share it on the screen. Oh, here we go. Look at that. Did I do it?
Oh, you are.
Oh,
whoa.
There we go. Now
Nice.
if I click. Whew, I was kind of having a tech challenge day this morning, trying to figure new things out. So
I'm impressed.
I'm excited that this went.
We all know that I'm technologically, I struggle, but this is pretty impressive. It looks great. Okay, perfect.
Okay. And Holly, why don't you walk us through this, because it does vary depending, and it's customizable too. Nothing's sort of carved in stone. So why don't you walk us through?
I give people actually sometimes a blank wheel after we do this about the areas that they're focusing on in their lives. So, it could be broken down in many different ways, but this is great. This covers a lot. You have your body, which is your physical well-being, of course. And basically what you're doing on this wheel is you're rating your level of satisfaction or growth on it. From a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, or 0 being the least, I should say, satisfied, to 10 being the most.
I called that one lots of room to grow.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that's great. Exactly. Lots of room to grow. But also you have to understand that because these wheels can be generic, there might be things on this wheel that may not be significant to you. So, if for whatever reasons, maybe, you're retired, career may not be something that you're looking to ramp up and become more satisfied with, but that can certainly be maybe substituted with maybe self-development. So you have to, understand that these wheels of lives, and mine is a little bit different than yours. Everybody's is going to vary, so that you have to understand this is a general sense just to get a feel of where the gaps are. So you're rating each of these different aspects of your life, basically, your physical health, your mental health, your fun and enjoyment, which is leisure, your relationships, which I break it down to both intimate and social, because I think they're two different. So yes. I like to break it down to two different. You have home. I've never put home on mine. Maybe familiar responsibilities I put in there. Again, it varies from person to person. Let me just see what I have. Money, yep, that financial stability is definitely something up there. I have feeling of purpose, finances, family, friends, career, professional, personal development. Again, it varies. So mine looks like this.
Okay.
But it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't know where I got home from.
So when you're rating home, what is that? What are we looking at?
I would put that in, when it comes, because I always think of home,
right,
as it's your sanctuary. It's where you go to regroup and to, it's your private space.
Okay.
So is your home, supportive of you in that sense?
Okay.
Because if your home I did speak to some women after, basically being home for 2 years with all of the lockdowns.
Yeah.
Their houses were absolute shitstorm because they've been trying to figure out
Yeah.
how to mesh working from home with kids from home and all of these different moving parts.
Yeah.
And then when the dust settled, they looked around and they're like, oh, this is a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if your home environment isn't comfortable, if it stresses you out, then that's something to take into consideration.
Yeah, I like that. Because I think of one of the influences are, we talk about that with my other work, is environment. And I think
Yes.
that that's an important piece to, our well-being and even creating the greater likelihood for successes in our lives is having an environment that's conducive for us, whether that be in our homes or even work, if we're out in the office. So I do think that is something to pay attention to as well. And again, like I said, these wheels, you'll see, if you actually Google it, you'll see, various wheels. It's a common coaching tool that you'll see. And you'll see it's a little bit different here and a little bit different there. Someone might have spiritual awareness on the wheel. Some might have, family, friends, like breaking it all down to really specific things. And so again, it's a generic kind of tool that allows you just to get some insights where you might have some gaps and where you might want to start paying greater attention to. But with that being said, if there's certain area on this wheel, you rate it low, but yet it's not of significance to you, okay, that's an insight in and of itself. And you might rate something rather high that you're doing really well in, but you still really want to put your efforts in there. The point is, it's a tool just to glean some kind of insights as to where your personal efforts will be served. So the whole purpose of the wheel is that after you rate every level, each aspect, whether through 1 through 10, you're going to connect the dots. So like you connect from, like, let's say body was an 8 and mind was a 7. You're going to connect from one point to another, and you're going to see how this wheel forms. Now, no one's wheel rolls smoothly, like it just, but some people might have a big dip in certain areas, and some might have, a little dip in other areas. The point is to see where the gaps are. I don't think I don't know anyone who gets a perfect rolling wheel.
No, they'd be lying.
Big gold star for that, to say the least. But it's just, again, to emphasize where the gaps are and what you might want to take a look at.
And it's just to create that awareness.
Exactly.
Because, and I used to, full out, I used to think things like this were stupid. I really did. I would never print them off. I would never pay attention to them. But there's something about putting it in black and white and having it like right in front of you.
Agreed. There's so much power on putting pen to paper. There really is. And even like with that being said, like, though, again, some of these tools might seem silly, it's not time consuming stuff. It's the type of thing that can just help you peel back the layers to really say, where would my best efforts be served? What do I need to focus on more? Even to bring it up a smidge. To go from a 6 to a 7, what would that exactly even mean? But, and I think at this time of our lives, because everything is constantly changing up so often, it's an important thing to go back to often. I would say, probably quarterly, and maybe even, at the very least every 6 months, to see where that is going for you. The other piece is that what I like about it, and that's what I shared earlier, is that I will also share a blank wheel with my clients, so that after they get more specific and more discerning with those aspects that they would like to work on, they can put those aspects on the wheel and use it as a reference for themselves for a form of accountability, a form of a reminder of these are the things that I want to work on. So let's say one of the things after doing a general wheel of life was you discovered you wanted to organize your home more. right? Like that would be, so in the wheel, it would literally be home organization. Maybe one of the aspects was you wanted to cultivate better familial relationships. So then that would be more specific. So after we, go through a general one, we can create one that's more customized to ourselves. And if you want, I can share a link for that, a blank one that people can actually print out for themselves. Because I have.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because what we're going to do is, depending if you're watching this video on YouTube, we've put together a Facebook group now. It's called the Roller Coaster of Midlife. It's just a Facebook group, and we're going to be sharing these resources in there. So you will actually be able to download PDFs. You're going to have access to these videos, and we're going to be continuing the conversation and sharing more information in there, as well as all of the other intricacies of midlife, anything from, hormones to families to, just having a laugh. Because really, sometimes that's all you can do.
Exactly.
Is pour that glass of wine and have a good old laugh.
Exactly.
Or cry, either one. And that's all sort of what this new space is going to be. Check out the notes. Depending on where you're watching this video or listening to this podcast, I'm going to have the links in the bottom. So, don't worry about having to jot that down right now.
Yeah, because we could share all those resources.
Oh, yeah. That's a great thing with the Facebook group, is that, it's an easy place for you to go and find everything without having to set up a separate area for you to organize it. Now, Holly, going back to the Wheel of Life.
Yep.
Would you advise somebody to pick a number, whatever comes first to their mind, or do you encourage people to go deeper in their thought as to whether they're choosing anywhere between that 0 and the 10?
No, I would just go with a gut feeling at this stage of our lives.
Make it quick.
Not overthink it, for sure. And also what I would say is a 5 could be different. What you think is a 5. A lot of the times, I'll do this with my clients and I'll be like, way, you're at least a 9 on that. What are you talking about? And they're like, well, that's not how I see it, or that's not how I feel. My 9 might be different than that. So it's a very, subjective kind of, tool, because it depends on what does 10 mean, like perfection to you, or, what does that actually mean? So you have to just kind of not take it too seriously, just go with it and don't overthink it, for sure.
Okay, that's what I would have said, is just go with your gut instinct, the number that pops into your head first. Just go with that, because often that's probably your truest answer.
Yeah. And it just generates, for me, it generates conversation with my clients. So why? And why did you do that? And it just helps to kind of flesh out those goals a little bit more. And for your own self, you can, do the same. You can do the same on your own.
Great. Perfect. Okay. So let's go into our 5 questions, and listen until the end, because we have a bonus question. We have our 5 questions that we should be asking ourselves in midlife. Now, Holly, you also said that this is something that we should be doing. Is this quarterly or annually we should be looking at this?
Yeah, everything we do now in midlife needs to be done with frequency. Quarterly is great, but at the least every 6 months, because what might be working for you yesterday may not very well work for you in 2-3 weeks from now. So we have to be on our toes, in midlife, because things
can change that quick.
Yeah,
they can.
They really can. They can. So I suggest everything quarterly, but that's sometimes a lot for people to ask. All of a sudden 4 months has passed and they're like, oh, and I'm at the 6-month mark, that kind of thing. So, but at least twice a year, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So the first question that you have is, if I continue on my path, what, if anything, might I regret? It's one of those words today, Holly. What might I regret in 20 years?
Yeah. Yeah. I like this question because it really gets people thinking this is something I might really need to nip in the bud. If I continue to always doubt myself, if I continue to always worry incessantly, what might I regret 20 years from now? That I've robbed myself of joy and pleasure the majority of my life. That was a very telling question for me. I am addicted to the emotion of worry. I am a recovering control freak, and I say recovering because I am so much better at it. But if I continued on my current path of trying to get ahead of everything and to control and to worry about things, I already spent a good deal of my half of my life robbing myself of a lot of pleasure. And so I would be so regretful to say that I continued down that path. And so I became adamant and diligent on doing my homework on ways to support myself to become a recovering control freak and worry less. That was very, very important for me. And that's something that came out of that question for me. How about for you? Any thoughts with that question?
Oh, yeah. You know
Yeah.
what? I'm a recovering fixer.
Mm.
I always felt that I had to fix everyone else's problems,
Ah,
which meant I was really good at pretending I didn't have any problems.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not until I sort of realized what I was doing and I acknowledged it and I can step back from it that I see how exhausting it was, mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's one of the areas that I've had to learn how to put up boundaries
Yeah.
is
Tell you, that question is very telling because 20 years from now, that brings me I'm going to be 55 in January. So I'll be 75. So at at 75, do I still want to,
but it's like even 5 years,
100%. But to imagine 20 years from
20
now,
years.
and I'm
I
still,
know.
like women say,
I'll be
I want to stop
70.
shitting on myself. I want to stop shitting on myself. That's a great one. Like, do you want to be 75 and still shitting on yourself? Do you want to be 75 and still fixing people? Like, do you want to be still, that is a really telling question, I think. And it really makes people stop in their tracks. And generally, a great sign of where to help answer that question is where are you exhausted? Where do you feel exasperated?
What
You know,
drains you? Yeah.
Right. And people might say, I want to, if I continue on my current path of perfectionism, there's so many, everyone has their own, wording, and exhaustion. And I think that it really, for me, it just stopped me dead in my tracks saying, like, if not now, when? Like, this is it. Like, I have to start working on this shit now, because I don't have the rest of my life to be able to do this. And I think the other part of it is that we've learned where did it serve us? I think when we were younger, we didn't have that wisdom. We fooled ourselves into believing, oh, if I do fix people, then it will be better. Or if I do worry about things, or if I do control things, it'll be better. And then unfortunately, it took a lot of getting our hand burnt over the stove and realized, no, not so much. I'm just exhausted and burnt out is what I am, is really the truth. So I think this is a really great question for midlifers, because they could really take the wisdom that they've had and think into the future.
Yeah. No, it's a great one. Okay. So number 2. Ooh, what habits, patterns, or beliefs are dragging me down?
Yeah.
Those good old limiting beliefs, eh?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think again, women tend to be very critical of themselves. So
Just a
this
little.
question tends to come a little bit easier for most, because we're really good at beating ourselves up and saying what we're not good at. So for some reason, this question seems to be a little bit easier for midlife women to answer, because they're always hyper focused on what they need to get better at. How did this land with you, that question?
It's something that I'm constantly going over in
Yeah.
the sense that, as you sort of go down that personal growth journey, like I've been on for the last 5 or 6 years now, you'll sort of get to call it like a new, if picture it as you're climbing a mountain. So you'll get to a plateau and you're like, oh, I've got my shit together. Everything's going good. And then all of a sudden you'll realize that you're getting tripped up by something.
Yep.
And I realized that this was just yesterday. I journaled about this. I chuckled because I realized I was tripping myself up when it came to trusting in my own abilities, when it came to just building even the new Facebook group.
Yeah.
And it's always looking for that guru out there that's got all the magic answers, that magic pill. And it's like, wait a second, you're an executive VP with a company. I think you sort of know a thing or two when it comes to it. You've got a good understanding of business. Why don't you just trust yourself in these situations? Because nobody knows you or what you're building better than you do.
Right. It's true. It's true. And I think that, again, our natural default is to, be critical of ourselves. But maybe we could flip that criticism around and put it in, rather than being self-critical, maybe being curious, like where is that even belief coming from? How is it holding me back? Is that even true? So I do think, like I said, this is, something to think about as we're moving forward, understanding it's always a work in progress. It's not like, like you said, we peel back the layers, we make some gains, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves maybe a little verklempt again and like, why am I back here? And that's why these questions never get old, because we're revealing more and more as we're growing and expanding ourselves. So that's why they're so important to, constantly return back to.
Yeah, they're good. They're really good thought-provoking questions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed.
So number 3 is, how fulfilling and loving do my relationships feel right now?
Yeah.
That one was a stinger for me because I look back to where I was 5-6 years ago. And, aside from being a hot mess, I've been with my husband for almost 30 years now, married for 30 years. We let life get the better of us. And our relationship was, not the best that it could be.
Yeah.
And that's common.
Oh, are you kidding? Very common.
Yeah. And unfortunately,
yes.
Unfortunately, what happens is that, you suddenly realize that there's this big gaping canyon in the relationship that you have with your partner, because you've been so busy.
Yeah.
Just, with life and kids and family and all of those things.
It deflects. I mean, life is challenging. I mean, 30 years under our belt is huge. That's a huge, how do you not, fall into the dips? And, the fact of the matter is, whether it's an intimate relationship or a social relationship, or a peer or colleague, relationships, are, and the reason why I put that question in is because, hands down, the number one predictor of our well-being and happiness is our relationships. And I'm not making this up. This is research based. Like that, over and over been proven to be the case. Now, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, I'm an introvert by nature. I like to call myself a social introvert. I like people, but I do really feel good on my own. And I do hate big parties and things along those lines. But our relationships are a huge part of our well-being. And I'm talking about quantity. I'm talking about quality. The quality of our relationship. And we go about our day and we don't even realize the weight on our shoulders that it can put on us when our relationships aren't going as we hope them to be going, whether it be our intimate or our, social relationships, or even our, like I said, work relationships. It's a big source of well-being. And so it has to be one of the 5 questions. It just has to be. And again, you can tell me all you want, Holly. I'm a loner. I'm a this. It does not matter. I am a loner too. Like, I get it. But your relationships are key to moving forward, especially in midlife. More powerful. You need to be with your peeps, especially in midlife.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you need this massive circle of friends. Nope. Some people do. Some people have a large amount of friends, and different relationships and they're friends with all of their family and things like that. Cool, great. That's what works for you.
Yeah.
But others of, we have fewer relationships.
Yeah.
But those are equally as valuable.
Yeah.
And, certainly for me, I mentioned earlier that, 5-6 years ago, the relationship with my husband wasn't so great. Now we're like best friends. We
Yeah.
both work from home.
Yeah.
We spend 99% of our time together. And, we're still laughing, having fun.
And you're conscious about it. That's the point.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where the next question is what am I doing to enrich my relationships?
Yes.
Right?
Number 4. Yeah.
Right. Because relationships don't just, magically happen. They're work. They are blood, sweat, and tears. Honestly, relationships are tough, but they're worth it. The payoff is huge.
Most of them are.
Yeah. Right.
Then there's the relationships that you have to just say, yeah, that ain't working too well for me. I think
of course
it was a few episodes ago you had shared where the different types of friends, where the friends that you have in your kitchen, the friends that you have in the porch, and then the friends that you leave at the end of the driveway.
Yes, exactly. And that's a great classification. Like, you don't have many kitchen peeps. Like, there just aren't many kitchen peeps. There might be a nice handful of people on the porch, because if you cultivate that relationship, maybe they'll become a part of your kitchen, but you don't know. But then there are people that need to be left out on the street at the end of the driveway that just drain and trigger you. And having that distinction allows us to know where to put our efforts in. So the question is, what am I doing to enrich my relationships? Obviously, those are who inspire us to be a better version of ourselves, or where we want to put our efforts in, for sure.
I would also add to number 4 about, what are you doing to enrich your relationships? I think that also comes down to how you're showing up in those relationships. Are you showing up as your best self? Are you putting in the effort, or are you the problem? Are you the pain in the ass?
Yeah. 100%. It goes both ways. And so what are you doing to enrich those relationships? Are you showing up for your friends? Are you showing up for your mate? Are you listening to people, like truly hearing them versus just, background noise? There's nothing like being heard. Everyone loves to be heard. Are you really, are you allowing people to be heard and seen for who they really are? So 100%. You got to reflect that right back onto you.
Yeah. Okay. So number 5.
Yeah.
When am I at my most happiest self, feel most alive and fulfilled, expressing the best version of myself?
Yeah. Again, that takes a lot of thought, probably, but you can simplify it and say to yourself, like, when great indications of like when you're at your happiest is when time flies. That's a great indication. Things that you talk about incessantly are typically things that you're very passionate about. So there you might find, little hints there as well. And or when you find yourself maybe laughing out loud, smiling, just feeling a sense of, just goodness. I use the word connection for me, like when I feel connected, I feel dialed in, I feel a sense of synergy. So that could be through my work, or that might be within my relationships. But for me, it's like I feel very connected. When I feel most connected to anything I'm doing. It could be even with my workouts. That's when I'm at my happiest. There's a sense of like, I guess the word would be synergy for me. Then I know that I'm really dialed in, and that's when that's when I know I'm at my best and I'm feeling at my best. So what are those things that I get that from? Where do I get that from? Collaborations with you, with other women in the midlife space. That for me fills me up tremendously.
Most definitely. And it's really the driving, I've talked about the driving force behind the roller coaster. And that came down to that pivotal day when I was at my very, very worst. That sort of was the turning point that has brought me to where I am. That's part of why I'm doing what I do. I just had a little menno fart there in my head. But I love engaging in authentic and meaningful conversation. I just always have.
Yeah.
That's why I love podcasting. And it's why love having these conversations like
Yeah.
this. I know there are some people that would rather die than do some of these things. But for me, it lights me up. I
Yeah.
joke about being that kid in class that didn't make a difference who you sat me next to. I was talking.
Yeah. It's so funny
That's
someone asked me that
just
question.
who I was.
Yeah. Yeah. My English teacher used to call me the loquacious child, the talkative child. But I hear that, like for me, I don't do fluff very well. Like that's why parties like in weddings are very hard for me because you really can't get into deep conversation at these events.
Yeah.
And I really suck at fluff. Like I just suck at, it's so awkward and uncomfortable for me. I don't do well with it. And that's when I'm not at my best. That's not when I'm at, when I can't really come from a deeper, more intimate level. I'm not at my best. And so, that's where, you can get some insights again about, where my best efforts are going to be served, clearly, probably, if I'm looking to, maybe increase my social interaction, like that's something I want more of. Well, I have to take in my preference into consideration. Like it's not going to be when, like a class of 30 people. It's going to be in a group of maybe tops 8, 10 women. Even my midlife magic meetups, I don't even want any more than 6 women in the group because that's my preference is small intimacy. So you have to know that about yourself. What is it? When are you at your best? So that you can know where then your best efforts will be served. Oh, excuse myself. My new phone is going off.
Well, that's okay.
Anyway, so I think that's a great question because then again, where your best efforts will be served by finding out what lights you up, what makes you happiest, when are you at your best. For me, also being purposeful is important. I like being purposeful. It's one of the reasons why I like being a coach, like to be of service.
And it also helps you recognize and acknowledge when you're not at your best, because if you're not at your best in certain situations, then maybe that's what you need less of in your life. But sometimes you just have to take that step back and go, wait a second.
Such an important point. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, how would I know that I'm not at my best in big parties and situations unless I was in them, right? And how could I discern that? How do you even know unless you're doing it? So there has to be a level of just consciousness as we're moving into experiences on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does this satisfy me? How much does this light me up? How much does it put, a smile on my face? Like, what is it? What is it about it? Some people love the arts. Some people love music. Some people love fashion. What is it? What lights you up? So I'm a dog fanatic. I've got 3 dogs. What lights you up? When are you at your best? Is really getting clear about that. And that's part of my 10-question toolkit, which I'll give you also a link to that for people can sign up for that. That really helps them dial in to who they are at their true authentic self. What pleases them and what makes them tick. And it changes a lot. Let's like who we were in our 20s and our 30s. Yeah, come on. Right. Exactly. Is not even on the same radar as now in my 50s. Yeah.
No, totally different. And that leads us into our bonus question.
I was going to say that's a good lead to the bonus question.
This is perfect lead into our bonus question. And our bonus question is, how have you changed in the past 5 years?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, that's one of the questions on my 10-question toolkit. And for me, that was a really big eye opener because one of my core values going back in the day was productivity and accomplishment. And that's changed now to more growth. And I realized in the last 5 years, like, I would slow down. Like I used to be the person who, would drop their daughter at dance, school. And then that night I would do a full food shop, maybe holiday shopping, and then go pick her up and then put everything. I'm not even remotely interested anymore. By the time it's 3:30, I'm like, I need me a little R&R. I want to smell the roses. Where have I changed? I don't have the stamina like I used to have, nor do I desire, but for an A-type personality like myself, who, is about wanting to feel purposeful, how do I, honor that? How do I honor how much has changed in the last 5 years, but understand that feeling purposeful is still significant to me? So that made me rethink my whole day. It made me saying, okay, I'm going to do my most purposeful work in the morning hours and into the afternoon, because that's when I'm at my best. And then by 3:30, I'm going to taper down and I'm going to recharge. And then if I recharge, I can maybe ramp back up again for a couple of clients, a group at night, or dinner with a friend. But if I don't take that time in between, I don't have that stamina anymore. I just don't. That's how I've changed. Nor do I desire to have that stamina. I'm not interested in proving anything anymore. Checking all the boxes.
I was going to say, and I think you just hit the nail on the head there, is I think for so long, we were proving
Check.
ourselves to, I don't know who we're proving ourselves to.
Check.
All these go. And I can remember being like that with our kids. I can remember I used to get those big, it was called a mom's calendar. They were big. And I had it. Everybody had their own color.
Yes.
So everybody, like I had a set of highlighters. Everybody's events was on the calendar and it was highlighted in their color. The meals were all planned out on there. It was, everything was categorized. It was organized. It was classified. And I'm so glad I'm not doing that anymore.
So I lived and breathed that calendar. I had that calendar
and
too.
The stickers.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. And I love, I'm like
I'm a stationary nerd.
Things like that. I am totally a nerd with that. But I lived and breathed that. But who's even remotely interested? I like just everything is much, I want to simplify my life. I don't want to magnify it. So, but at one time in my life that served me well, but that was going back. Right. So how have I changed in the last 5 years? I'm a different person. I don't desire the same things, nor do I have truthfully the stamina or the energy, to do that as well. I don't, that's the maybe, unfortunate part of aging. We slow down a little bit. But part of it is also, I don't want to. I want to stop and smell.
I think there's that wisdom in realizing that we don't have to live on that hamster wheel. Yeah. And I think that comes from the personal growth and all that inner work that you do, is that you realize that it's okay to just sit and be. Yeah. Like the other morning, I kid you not, it was a bit chilly out. I mean, we're well into October and, winter is hinting itself with frost in the mornings. But yesterday morning I got up and I'm like, I'm just going to make my tea. And I sat on the porch swing and I just watched the birds. And I just hung out there. That was it.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel the need to get up and put on a load of laundry or to do anything. It's like, no, I'm going to sit here for an hour and chill.
Yeah, I feel like I've earned my badges to do that. I really have. I've put in enough decades and years of all of that. Although I would definitely do it over if I could, because I would do less of it, because I realized it really didn't, really amount to anything but just being constantly busy and stressed out and taking the focus off of my, really what I really did, what my mind, body, and heart really needed. I was just keeping me busy. But, I think that we change a lot. And, I know I say how have you changed in the last 5 years, but it could be 3 years. It could be 1 year. I mean, like I said, in midlife, things are changing up rapidly. So it's the type of tool that I would, suggest going back to these questions often. These are the kind of questions to revisit often. And I think we've talked about this off air, but we were talking about, getting a sense of, how do I know when I'm most at my true, authentic, happiest self? And I shared with you, sharing with the community a values assessment, which could also be another great way of creating some insight behind your why, what's important to you. Why, if vitality is important to you, then feeding your body well and moving your body and taking care of your stress is going to be getting to bed earlier, going to the doctor's appointments. That's going to be on your to-do list. For me, one of my core values, I told you, it just shifted over to self-love. Well, let me start honoring that. How can I honor that? By, listening to myself and resting when my body says you're tired. It's okay to rest. You can still love yourself and not whip yourself and beat yourself. So when you have these core values, you can have a really good sense of what your why is behind it. This is why I'm getting my ass to the doctor. This is why I'm getting my ass on the Peloton. This is why I'm showing up to the lives and to the client calls and creating the programs and the content every week, because my why is to, to help women age powerfully. That's a huge part of my why I get up out of bed, so that helps also, I think, gain some clarity as through your values assessment, which I'll share with you as well. People can do all of this stuff on their own. Of course, it's helpful, to have a sounding board, but all of these tools are completely doable on your own.
And we're going to put them all in the Facebook group, the Roller Coaster of Midlife Facebook group. And I think I don't know if it's called documents or what the exact section is, but because I know we've covered a lot. We've talked about a lot of different tools and resources.
Yeah.
So I am going to lay them out in the Facebook group so that you have them easy access. We're going to have the wheel of life. We're going to have a blank wheel of life. I think I'm going to turn the 5 questions into easy journaling pages for
cool.
people.
That's
so great. Make sure, if you're not already in the Roller Coaster Midlife Facebook group, make sure you join us, because that's where we're going to be sharing a ton of stuff, as well as having these conversations. And maybe you can find an accountability buddy that can help you in hashing out some of these answers and whatnot. So
and Lucy, I just want to say one thing, because a lot of times when people start diving into these tools, there's no right or wrong way in doing it. Sometimes women will talk to me and there is no right or wrong way, and don't overthink any of it. You're just going to glean insights from doing all this. So it's not an exercise in futility. Like, you're not here to overwhelm you. Pick one and just do one and see what you get from that. I don't want people to be overwhelmed by any of these tools or exercises. Again, it's not about overthinking, and there's no right or wrong way to do any of these tools. So don't take it all too seriously. The opportunity is just in getting wisdom and understanding where your best efforts will be served. So this way you can start, making shit happen.
Yeah, I mean, pick one tool or resource, one journal page, whatever you want, and just see where that takes you. And don't feel that there's a time limit that you have to get this all done in a week or anything like that. Just pick what resonates with you, where you are at this point in time, and just see what comes up, see what's revealed. And if at any time you have any questions or concerns, don't forget, you can always connect with us on social media, and just send us a message if you're looking for a little bit of guidance.
Yeah.
So until next week, keep riding the roller coaster of midlife and embracing this badass adventure.